Yes, legends, how's everybody doing? Hope you're doing fantastic. Had a great weekend. We're going to get the price of Bitcoin technical analysis to see what could be the next movements, guys. Do we see pumpy action, continuation? Let me know right away in the comment section, you absolute legends. How is everybody doing? Welcome to the live stream. Let's go, guys. Let me know if you can hear me, if you can see me, and we'll be analyzing the situation right away for the price of Bitcoin. Let me just go quickly through the comment section, say hello to the beautiful community. Hope you had a fantastic weekend, guys. Weekends is to spend some time with the family, friends, enjoy while we're getting this consolidation. Now the question is, does Bitcoin have some steam to continue to the upside? We've got some very good technical analysis that we will do from scratch so you can understand the possible movements that could happen, guys. We start from zero and build up the map, okay? So you can get it from the start till the very end. We just don't throw moving averages and this, that, the other and say we could pump or dump. We start building the different projections that could happen, build up a strategy together, and that's what we're gonna do. Let me go quickly through the comment section. Let me know if you can hear me, if you can see me, if the volume is good. Let's go, legends. How is everyone doing? Zach, gonna be a real interesting week. It definitely is. Daniel Singleton, afternoon, my man. Much love to you. Nice to see you around again. To me, it is going to be a dump, says Giovanni. What is not clear, if BTC will make another pump before the retracement. Very true, my man. Very true. Another pump is very possible, but we are facing this very big resistance zone, okay? It's very interesting to analyze with Fibonacci, different projections, the bearish case, but also the bullish case. However, the bullish case would be nice to get one more high. Then a movement down, a pullback eventually to lower levels is going to be very interesting to analyze. I want to know from the community, let me know right away, legends. Okay, I'm going to start a poll here right away. Bitcoin, new all-time high in 2025. Let me know right away. Bitcoin new all-time high in 2025. Yes or no, guys? That's going to be an easy poll. Let me know. Bitcoin new all-time high in 2025. Starting the poll right now. Let me know your opinion, legends. Okay, and we'll scroll down through the comment section. Then we're going to build up here the different projections. All right, because yeah, it's looking very interesting. I got a good one for you here, guys. Okay, I do have a good one. It's going to be looking pretty damn interesting. The different scenarios, the most important levels that we do have. Of course, we are hitting resistance right now in between $94,000 and $96,000. You know, there is a cluster just swept up this high. You know, it's a problem right now. Okay, so regardless of taking out the highs one more time, which is definitely possible, you know, the question is, will this movement be a retracement or will it be pretty impulsive? That is the main question right now. It is unlikely that we form a bull flag and we shoot up here and head up to $105,000, right? Getting close to all-time high. It's an unlikely scenario. It is possible, but it's an unlikely scenario, okay? So, you know, the question is the pullback, right? The movement down that happens regardless if we take out the highs or not. Is it going to be corrective or is it going to be impulsive? Of course, if it is impulsive with the 5 waves, very aggressive, sweeping up the lows, then it could be looking pretty dangerous, right? For another rollover down. We don't want to see that, right? We do not want to see that. And for the bullish case, well, eventually after a small little consolidation, well, taking out the highs will be looking very, very nice, right? It would be looking quite nice because then, you know, you can count a pretty aggressive, impulsive move up with 5 waves, right? This would be a good sign for the bulls. That's it, guys. The low is in. You know, we are looking for some kind of a retracement in this area, okay? And then looking for all-time highs. We'll be getting the waves, the Fibonacci, okay? The different patterns that can be formed. Obviously, taking into consideration the overall higher time frame. I want to know your opinion, okay? Because a lot of people are bullish. A lot of people are bearish. Usually these polls get a 50-50. Oh, yeah, today, well, this one's actually pretty good. 84% of the voters right now currently saying that, yeah, Bitcoin new all-time high in 2024 and 2025, sorry. Pretty much confident, right? I also believe so that another all-time high is very likely going to happen. We got, you know, a bit of percentage that are saying no, you know, it's a fake rally, right? This is the thing. This rally is gonna definitely test us, right? I got another chart here. You must have seen this chart. I've seen it throughout all X account, right? Seen it. You know, this is the M2 global money supply, right? And you know what is very interesting about this is the M2 global money supply eventually new all-time high, massive rally in the last few months, and Bitcoin's lagging behind, right? Bitcoin's lagging behind. Usually Bitcoin does follow the M2 global supply, right? We bottomed out here also in 2022 in November, same as Bitcoin. This rallied and Bitcoin started to rally a few weeks later, right? Then global M2 money supply, right? Going down, correction, started pumping. Bitcoin pumped slightly sooner than the M2 global money supply, right? Then a consolidation right over here on the M2. Consolidation on Bitcoin, rally, Bitcoin lagging behind, okay, the M2, correction, and now this. Do we expect this same scenario, right? Do we expect Bitcoin to rally with the global liquidity, right, the M2? In this stage, back throughout June and September, Bitcoin was lagging behind, right? Was lagging behind. Are we going to see something similar, right? For the moment, it's not an instant correlation. You can see that Bitcoin can lag behind, a couple of months behind, right? The M2. And this is like the famous chart that is rolling around, you know, social media, right? For now, which is very, very interesting. Of course, lots of people were saying that there's not going to be a new all-time high unless the M2, right, starts really picking up. Well, it has, right? It has picked up very nicely. But we are interested in the shorter time frame, right? We are interested in what could happen locally, which we are going to focus throughout in this live stream, guys. So make sure to destroy the like button if you do enjoy the content. Much appreciated. Let me just say quickly hello to the beautiful community, as we do get that people joining here for the Sunday evening live stream, right? Evening, morning, wherever you are. And we're going to focus on the price of Bitcoin. I want to focus later on your comments. Some altcoins, some of them are popping, right? Nothing too aggressive, right? People are getting excited with these little pops. But overall, it has been a good chance to buy some altcoins, right? Throughout the last few weeks as we were getting this downtrend, right? We want to buy when it goes down, not when it goes up. Legends, Thunder, Storm, how are you doing? Up or down? Well, you know, this is the thing. We are facing some resistance right now on Bitcoin. There's no doubt about it. We've extended with a pretty nice pump throughout last week. And now we're getting a little bit of choppiness. Now the question is, can we form a little bit of a bullish flag here and revisit the highs? That's the moment it's going to be very, very interesting, right? So we'll focus on that now throughout the next coming minutes. Andy and other dumb YouTubers were calling for 60s and 50s. My man, if you are going to come here to call me dumb, you can basically fuck off, right? You can go. I wasn't calling for 60s or 50s. You know, the only thing that I was calling was, you know, this is a very shallow pullback, okay? And for this to be labeled as a wave 2 is very kind of unlikely, right? But we're going to give it a chance, right? So if you're going to come here and hate, we are a community. We try and look at different projections. So if you're going to come and hate here, you can go and follow somebody else, all right? Let's keep it that way. And the volume is very low. Let me know if the volume is still very low, legends. And, right? I think it's going down. Yeah, locally we'll be analyzing that right away. Hello, I didn't get to buy the dip since front run the important levels, sadly. Was that the last week, right? As we were getting this consolidation, potentially, right? We were going to analyze right away. Volume is fine. Okay, guy, thank you very much, my man, for confirming that. A chart doesn't look like that. The chart very 3-wave, you know. It is very 3-wavy. This is what we are going to discuss. Good work, bro. Much love to you, my man. There is a hidden bullish divergence in the 4-hourly time frame. Yeah. Let's analyze the situation here, guys, okay? Analyze the situation, because for the moment, a consolidation and one more high, a pretty significant high, would be ideal, okay? This would be the start of a confirmation that, you know, things will be looking quite good. For the moment, as someone has said, right, just keeping this a chart, guys, we're going to keep it with price action. We have massive bullish momentum. People are getting very excited with this pump. You know, there's no doubt about it. But we need a bit of more confirmation, right? We are starting to come to a level of resistance, very crucial resistance. And for the moment, all of this still looks very 3-wavy. The moment we consolidate, we retrace a little bit more, that's fine, and we take out the highs again, that is the moment we will have a confirmed bullish structure, regardless of a deep pullback. Regardless, this movement to the upside with one more high will be looking very impulsive, okay? We'll be looking pretty damn good for the, you know, the price of Bitcoin. If we start pulling back right now pretty aggressively, the moment we do come down to the golden pocket from this pivot low to the pivot high, and we start moving down very aggressively, right? Just say we're taking out the high or not here locally, then it's going to be looking a little bit dangerous in my opinion, right? This is very three-wavy for the moment. And the best example that I could give you here was a few days ago. We need a consolidation. We need a consolidation in this range and to take out the high one more time to have a confirmed impulsive move to the upside. A 5-wave structure. This will be looking pretty damn nice. And this would be the moment that I would say the movement down is going to be very interesting to analyze, okay? Of course, there is one bearish case scenario and we don't like it, okay? I don't like it, but I have to give it a possibility. And that we have formed a 3-wave structure here to the downside. And all of this is an ABC flat. So regardless, if we do form kind of a 5-wave structure, it still could be a trap. It still could be a trap because lots of analysts will be focusing on this being an impulse, right? We've got a 5-wave move up. We've broken structure. How better could this get, right? This is bullish, right? We're going to go to all-time high. Any movement down, even though regardless if it's going to be aggressive or not, has to find some support, right? Give or take in between the 50% and the 7/8 Fibonacci. That is the main idea here. That is the main idea, that this zone would hold, right? However, there is a hidden scenario here, because it is really hidden. It is a hidden scenario where you do have your movement down in a WXY or an ABC. It doesn't matter. It does count on both ways. And then from this low right over here, you get this pump with a 3-wave structure, a 3-wave move down, and then a 5-wave move, right? Say that we do get that 5-wave move to the upside. That would be a flat in the middle here, right? That would be a flat. This could definitely be an ABC flat right over here. It's going to be a tricky scenario because there will be a lot of people saying this is it, right? It's pretty clear that we've formed a 5-wave structure to the upside. And, it depends on the movement down, right? It really depends on the movement down. There has to be, kind of a correction. In WXY, 3-wave structures, we'll be analyzing very carefully what the heck is happening on the correction. We do have massive amount of liquidity building up to the downside. We do have that liquidity to the upside, so it would make sense to create another wave up to, revisit 95, hit 96K. That would be, the ideal scenario. And then, finally hit the golden pocket. And, the point of control of this entire range, which is going to be a tough nut to crack. It's going to be a tough nut to crack, I have to say. I don't see any massive explosion here from this level, especially with this kind of, sideways momentum, right? When you have a 3-wave structure like this, the probabilities of forming a bull flag and extending, getting a massive extension is highly unlikely, okay? This is a low probability move. This would be an extreme low probability move to the upside. So we need to be a little bit cautious. Eventually, we do have that point of control. We do have the golden pocket, right? And we do the analysis based on history, guys, right? We do analysis based on the history of, every chart, right? The S&P, Dow Jones. That's how you analyze the different movements. And that's where you come with the probabilities, right? How many times have we done this, right? How many times did we get a pump, a short, a shallow consolidation, another pump, a shallow consolidation, and another pump like this, right? Even being stronger than the first 2 pumps to the upside that we had in April. This, when you take a look at the history of many different, assets, is a low probability move, right? So you just come to that conclusion, right? To break out here suddenly and pump another $10,000 in the next coming days is extremely unlikely, right? We don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows, right? But at the end of the day, we do analyze the situation and, we do understand the probabilities that, for something to happen. And this is an unlikely scenario. Yeah, could we pump to 96, 97, maybe scratch 98? You know, without a doubt. But I would say that, you know, there's a high chance that we do, you know, find some resistance in this area. We got the point of control from this massive consolidation. We do have the golden pocket. And you know what is interesting about this zone, something that I explained on the previous stream, then we'll zoom in on the lower time frames, legends, okay? But higher time frames, you know, we just need to understand, you know, the resistance areas and the probabilities of really getting that continuation up, right? Could it be one of those moments, right, that Bitcoin is so bullish that it just breaks the probabilities, right, and it just moons from here? You know, at the end of the day, nobody knows, right? We'll focus on the lower time frames to look at some interesting levels and some, you know, intraday setups. But what is very, very interesting here about, let me just get this off the chart. What I explained on the previous stream is the similarities, right? Markets move in impulsive moves, corrective moves, distribution events, and accumulation events, right? And when we do analyze the previous cycle, and, you know, I know for all of those people that, you know, have had enough saying, you know, history does not need to repeat, you know, it's just understanding where we find the resistance, right? That's just what I want to explain here. So when we do take a look at the bars pattern from this price action, you know, then we did hit all-time high. The similarities that we do have here, right? You got a distribution. You have a distribution right over here. You have the you know, the aggressive dump down, and this was in May. Another poll that I wanted to create was, you know, do we sell in May or do we buy in May here, guys, right? This is a very, very common saying, right? Sell in May, run away. It does look like that May could be actually, well, now that we already pumped in April, going to be a little bit interesting to see what May, you know, what May's going to bring. You know, lots of people know about the markets, right? You need to sell in May. People are selling for their holidays, and they're running away with the cash. But it might be different, right? We'll be analyzing the local scenarios. So just to understand a little bit of the previous cycle, and you know, there's many examples based on this. So you have the distribution, the accumulation. It was highly likely that at some point here, we were going to reverse. Somebody said I was calling for 50, you know, 60, 50K. I never said that. I was, you know, always saying on the higher time frame that all of this is so similar to this, right? It's bottoming out. This does look corrective. At some point, we're going to reverse. So I don't know where he got that from. There'll be no live stream or no video saying that we're going to go down. I said it was highly unlikely that we go down very impulsively, and you know, regardless of taking out the low or not again, that we are looking for that reversal to, you know, get to 95, maybe 100K on the higher time frame. So we focus on lower time frame most of the time, but it is important to focus on higher time frame, right? Try and understand, you know, the major levels of resistance. So what you can see here on the previous cycle, well, eventually you would come to the idea of, you know, bump and run scenario here, right? Bump and run, you break out trend, you break out the local trend here as well from this, you know, accumulation scenario. Here's where we have, you know, here's where we had the issue. When we started to get into this big range and coming up to the golden pocket, you know, that's where we did get a decent pullback. We were getting some pretty decent pullbacks. We did drop down about $10,000 approximately, give or take, right? 11. You know, and you're starting to face some of that resistance after this distribution, dump, accumulation, pump, right? You know, some kind of a correction is the higher probability here around this area, as explained on the previous videos, right? 94 to 96K is going to get choppy. It's going to be difficult. And then, you know, very, very likely we're going to see some kind of a rejection. Hopefully it is going to be corrective, right? When we do zoom in on this price action, well, you can see this is what we want to see, right? This is what we want to see. A three-wave structure, right? This is a three-wave structure, consolidation. You have lots of overlap here. So you understand from this price action, from the rejection of that golden pocket, you know, we can clearly see here. Let me just hide this. Right, from the rejection of the golden pocket, of the previous cycle, we did move down in a three-wave structure. You know, these opportunities do come. They do come at some point, and it's all about detecting it. When we got this dump, pretty aggressive dump, right? You're breaking this local uptrend. It got choppy. You got a major breakdown. As you can see, the price retraced and it moved to the downside. If this is going to be very bearish, you would want this wave to move down aggressively and then form a consolidation and then another leg to the downside. However, let's analyze a little bit what happened here, right? Just so we can be ready for, this is higher time frame, guys. We'll focus on lower time frame. If we do reject here at this $95,000 range, right, give or take, a couple of $1,000s up, we'll focus on that now. As you can see, this third wave down, didn't move to lower levels, right? It started consolidating and we got a pretty decent bounce. So when we do zoom in on that rejection, this was back in September of 2021. Realize how this bounce right over here starts overlapping, right, the pivot low. You want to see this movement down very aggressive, and then a little bounce. Then that, you can realize that this could be a wave 4 and then a wave 5. However, this bounced, overlapped the possible wave 1. In the end, it's an ABC, right? It's crystal clear. It's a three-wave structure. This is the moment that you do realize this could be very bullish, right? Of course, you're finding that resistance here from this base. So, it's pretty obvious that you're going to say, okay, we're going to get a pullback down. This is on the daily chart. But this is the moment that you realize this could be pretty damn bullish, because it's not being impulsive. If it were to be impulsive, you do not want to bounce to really overlap this area, right? And that's the moment that you like, I kind of like this bounce, and the retracement could be very attractive for me to get back in. Okay, so it's just one of those ideas. Of course, the three-wave structure can be very complex, right? You can form a zigzag, you can form another zigzag, and you can form, a flat here in the middle, and then you roll up here, forming a WXY. Very, very complex. But we'll analyze the situation once, we start correcting down if it were going to be the case. So, just realizing how this was actually, a bullish correction, right? In simple terms, it was a descending wedge, right? For all of those, the basic analysis, which also worked very well. I'm not saying it doesn't. It was a descending wedge. Well, you can really analyze on the lower time frame using a little bit of Elliott wave theory and understanding that this bounce was actually bullish. So in simple terms, the correction or the impulse, we don't know, that happens from here is going to give us all of the information to see if we, can manage to break out in an impulse to hit all-time high, right? So in a nutshell, we do know, golden pocket has been front run, right? We haven't quite hit golden pocket. We haven't hit the, hang on a minute, almost scratched the golden pocket, almost scratched it, just like on the previous cycle, right? We got the point of control as well in this area. This is this is the nasty thing, right? Could we front run it? It would be really nice to get that consolidation and next pump. This could be an epic swing failure pattern. This would be the moment for a big swing failure pattern on the higher time frame. You realize about the 5-wave move up, it can be bullish, but regardless, you are looking for that pullback at some point, right, in the next coming days. The probabilities here to smash out, if we do consolidate, right, regardless going to 90K or not, right, if we do consolidate and take out the highs, the swing failure pattern here is without a doubt a high probability setup. It's a high probability setup. We'll talk about the local levels of support that need to hold for a long, all the way up to the highs as well eventually. But taking into consideration the higher time frame and this movement to the upside to get continuation in the next coming days, I think we know that it's an unlikely scenario, right? So just so we realize how the price action can move, right? If we do take out the highs, this at the golden pocket is a very good double top, and you're at least targeting the local lows of the range. It's a classic movement. You realize that the probabilities of continuation to the upside are very, very poor, and that a double top here locally to test the lows of your fourth wave, at least as a target one, is incredibly likely, right? It's a high probability trade setup, and that's what we're interested in, right? So then it's what, you know, on the higher time, that's what's going to be very interesting on the higher time frame. If we start moving down very aggressively here and we start getting to this zone, I have to say it's not going to be looking too great. It ain't going to be looking too great, because all of this has been a three-wave structure. And if you retrace that low, you know, you're just breaking the entire hype and the entire uptrend. If you retrace this low in the next coming days, you know, heading below 90K, you know, I would give 90K to 89K. We'll focus on the lower time frame, a chance to hold on. It's basically the resistance area that could flip as support, keeping it in simple terms, right? Resistance flipping into support, that there is a chance. But if we do lose that area, you know, start getting below, it's not going to be looking too great. Depending on the bounce, it's not going to be too great. And the main reason why is because you formed a three-wave structure. And, you know, we have multiple examples. The best example that I could give you here is just, you know, just a few months ago, right? You do not want to form a three-wave structure to the upside and retrace as low as the golden pocket from the local consolidation. And it's just chart analysis and looking at the probabilities, guys. You know, I'm just analyzing the scenario here. You can be very bullish or very bearish and go with your emotions. I'm just looking at the local charts here to just tell you what is highly likely, right? Sometimes the unlikely scenario does happen, I have to say, right? But, you know, focusing on this pump to the upside, you realize that you formed a three-wave structure: pump, consolidation, pump. We are in this zone right now, right? The question is, can we get one more high to give the bulls a possibility to see it as a five-wave impulsive move? For the moment, we got three waves, and that's where it's getting very interesting, right? And you might think, this move does not look like that move. You must be smoking your socks, as Devil says. Well, it's on the lower time frame. You just need to stretch it out, right? You just need to stretch it out. And you know, this is the main reason why, you know, I explain, if we pull back down to get close to these lows, if we do this, the bounce is highly likely going to be weak, guys. It's going to likely be a weak bounce. I'm sorry. It's just looking at the higher probability scenario. If we come down, but you know, to below $86,000-$85,000 to this range, you know, the people that expect a bullish bounce from here, extreme bullish bounce, is going to be unlikely. So it's going to be a good zone to analyze very carefully for a movement down. So we do not want that to happen, right? For the bulls out there, we do not want that to happen, because if you do come down to this area, you no longer have an impulse. You have a three-wave structure that is part of the downtrend, right? And I know most will think that the downtrend has been broken, right? That is the trap sentiment. But the local price action is going to give us the information. So we do not want that three-wave move up to come down to the second wave consolidation. We do not want this, because the probabilities of having a weak bounce and getting a leg down is extremely likely, right? Probabilities increase if the price were to come down to this zone. if it does come down, which we do have massive amount of liquidity, you know, it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting, guys. You know, would be a moment that you're going to start seeing some bearish thumbnails, right? It was a fake pump. You're going to, you know, start seeing all of these, you know, social media going a bit crazy here with this movement down. And, you know, obviously a relief rally would be very much expected at some point. But, you know, it's just this explanation, right? You know, you got the perfect example right over here. You do not want to come down in this zone if you do not take out the highs. If you take out the highs after this consolidation, it's going to be looking good. Then you can come down to this area, right? And the main reason why, obviously, right, just in simple terms here, you know, if you consolidate in this region, you take out the highs and then you pull back, then that is fine, right? That's, you know, we could be actually looking at this being very bullish because we have formed a 5-wave move up, right? And obviously the idea here is looking for a 3-wave move. It might be aggressive to sweep up the liquidity. We know that the price moves down more aggressive than goes up. So taking out the highs after the consolidation is going to be crucial for the bulls, right? It's going to be a must. It has to be a must. It has to be a must to take out the highs of whatever happens here in this range, to take out the highs. Preferably we do consolidate a little bit more, maybe sweep up the lows. We're going to talk about some long setups, levels that need to hold, and what we need to see on the lower time frame, guys, to get ready for a high probability setup, right? That's what we do. But it's going to be very important to take out those highs, to have confidence in the next coming weeks, right? For the price to, you know, form a 3-wave structure and finally get that pump to all-time highs. So yeah, it's a very, very interesting range. It's a very one of those kind of areas that the next movement is going to be crucial, because I will understand that if price does not take out the highs, right, after this consolidation and comes down to this area below 86-85k, we will have a relief rally. We will have some kind of a relief rally, which, you know, will probably trap a lot of people. Will probably trap a lot of people in believing that this rally is going to be bullish, because, you know, you've broken trend, you pumped, you just forming a retracement. You know, it's time to go to all-time high. Anyway, we'll get to that once we get the information eventually, right? So, as mentioned, in this consolidation, we want to take out the highs. That's going to be crucial for all-time highs in the next coming weeks, right? See this as a correction. And then obviously we're finding a bottom. We're getting up to the highs here. You know, maybe heading to all-time highs as well is a possibility, right? This is higher time frame, guys. We're going to focus on lower time frames to analyze this local structure. But as you can see, for the moment, we have a 3-wave structure. We had a 3-wave structure here. And if we take out this consolidation without taking the highs one more time, after forming this bullish flag, if you wish, it's not going to be looking too great. And, you know, what would be the bearish case scenario, right? What would be the bearish? Because if the price were to come down, I would be higher time frame bearish, guys, if we don't take out the highs. I'm sorry. You know, it's just based on the analysis on the chart. Based on the waves and understanding the probabilities. So what bearish case scenario is there possible, right? You know, you would have to come to the conclusion that the corrective structure has not finished. You have a zigzag here. You have a quick, you know, 3-wave structure to the upside, another 3-wave structure to the downside, and, you know, very, very possibly formed a WX, right? This being an X, and then another Y right over here. Could it be possible? Well, I would confirm that scenario if we come down to this zone. I would confirm that scenario being a 3-wave structure here, sweeping up lows, sweeping up highs, and if we get to this point, you know, I would have my reasons on the chart to believe that possibly another low could come. So, the next information is going to be crucial, guys, right? It's not being a bear, it's not being a bull, it's understanding the charts. There's nothing else, right? If we do consolidate, as mentioned, right here, and we take out the highs, there would be still a very trappy scenario, which would be a W here, an X here still, and then maybe you're looking for your Y wave that could actually really go to low 60k levels, and that would be a flat, and we don't want to see that eventually, but it will all have to do. I don't like this ABC flat. I don't like it just because your B wave is over 10 times longer than your A wave right over here. But you do have a zigzag up. You do have this zigzag down. And of course, in an ABC flat, you want your zigzag and your A wave very, very fast and shallow in timing. This is why I don't like it. Your B wave is much longer. But this would be like the classic moment, right, of, hey, we formed a 5-wave impulsive move up. And then the price really gets, aggressive to the downside, which would be a very, it would be an interesting scenario because, I think the traps are designed, guys. The traps on the chart are designed, and this would be very, very interesting eventually. If we were to take out the highs, 5-wave structure, you will see this, even your grandmother talking about, hey, we formed an impulse here, 5-wave move up, right? Elliott wave theory, bang, bang. Hey, here we go, right? Easy peasy. Well, you need to analyze the past, and see what kind of waves you formed. And this is a valid count. This is a valid count, an A, B, C flat to form your X wave. Zigzag down, A, B, C flat here. And of course, you have the trap situation of forming an impulse in your ABC flat. And then, it's just, it's going to be very, very interesting to see in the next coming days, guys. It's going to be very, very cool to see what kind of price action, because many will be very bullish. I will even be very bullish, guys. If we do take out those highs, we just have to analyze very carefully what comes next here, to really see the probabilities of, it's actually, this has been the end right over here. This is an impulse. This is what we need to analyze very, very carefully, the corrective move, to see if it is going to be corrective, right? So anyway, let's go through the local time frame. That's what everybody's here for, local time frame, right? And see the, the internal movements, the different probabilities that could happen here in the next coming hours. Analyzing the local pump, right? Because it would be nice to get to the to that point of control. Would be nice to actually get another leg to the upside. Let's go to the 1 hourly and really analyze this structure here, because sweeping up these highs, and we do have that liquidity still, right? There's still hundreds of millions of dollars of short liquidation sitting above $96,000, right? We do have that liquidity up there, and we need to really, really focus on what the heck is going on here. What the heck is going on here, right? Very choppy, very this, lots of, at the beginning of the stream, lots of people saying, the question is, will we take out the highs again or not, right? That is the main question at the moment. So we're going to focus on that right away and analyze the local movement here to the upside, right? What do we have here? What do we have here? What do we have here locally? What are the patterns and scenarios that could be forming, and what is the strongest level of support to see if the price does come down there and, and really trigger that possible, either a long position or a short. The short is, eventually the swing failure pattern from the highs is the moment, right? Now is that kind of, these highs, if they're tested after this consolidation, this is the must right now. This is the kind of the golden moment that you wait for to actually get to the golden pocket from all-time highs to the lows, right? And hit the point of control, you know, that's definitely a good swing failure pattern from the highs or hit point of control. 96 to 97k is definitely possible. Analyzing the local pump up will be very interesting. And you know, let's talk about the long setups as well, because we are uptrending and we are looking for the highs to be taken, very possibly, as we are uptrending, right? This is the kind of choppiness that you do believe that the price will roll over at some point, but we're still uptrending. You know, this is very uptrending still, and another high is kind of expected. And I'll explain right away on the lower time frames. Going from scratch, guys, going from this low to the current highs that we formed, analyzing very carefully, you know, all of this area, and understanding the probabilities, right? Another high would be very interesting, especially with this move. It does seem kind of unfinished, which I will explain right away. Okay, so if you do enjoy the content, guys, a little bit of my higher time frame perspective. Okay, very important to understand a little bit higher time frame, what we're looking at on the waves. Hope you did enjoy the explanation, giving you the examples of the 2021 cycle, right? 2021 cycle, understanding the amount of resistance that there is here currently, the bars pattern, distribution, accumulation, you know, eventually coming into the distribution area. You know, you're going to face a few little problems, right? Hopefully they're just going to be pullbacks, and understanding here also this three-wave move up, right? Three-wave move up for the moment. Three-wave move up for the moment, even taking out the highs again. You know, you could still consider a three-wave move, unless you do get a pretty solid pullback, which would be nice, because if you do form a shallow pullback in your wave 2, there's a higher probability that your wave 4 is going to be sharp, right? If wave 2 is sharp, then wave 2 is shallow. If wave 2 is shallow, wave 4, you know, likely going to be sharp, right? And we need to talk about the most important levels of support if we are considering that next wave to the upside. Okay, you know, I would eventually expect the 382 or 50% to be hit here, and it's something that we need to talk about. Let's see that like button get destroyed, guys, and let me know if I'm going to go through comment section here quickly before we focus on local time frames. I need to say hello to the beautiful community. So Andy is wrong. 95% of the time, do the opposite, says Mango. Yeah, right. It seems like I'm going to get 10 live streams from the last 3 weeks, okay? Because we mainly take a look at the local scenarios. People only take, you know, judge from the latest scenario, right? People only judge from the latest scenario. Were you here in this price action? I'm going to get every single live stream from this structure, and I'm gonna put the exact waves and the exact levels of support and resistance. All right, people forget about that. I like to take a look at all of the live streams, right? Out of 10 predictions, and then maybe one that might have been wrong, then likes to judge from one scenario, right? You know, it happens. Okay, I will get every single live stream from the last few weeks. Every single live stream will take a look at the different predictions. Okay, I can tell you there's more that actually, you know, played out very nicely. This zone also. But people like to judge from the latest one, which is, you know, okay. If you don't like it, then of course, you know, go away. Stop hating. Probably we will fill the CME gap and go up. We can take a look at the CME gap right away. BTC CME gap. It's all about understanding the different probabilities, okay? It's not about being right or wrong. It's all deciding on where the best trading setups lie, right? That's what we like to take a look at. So CME gap. Right over here, I'm not a huge CME gap fan, but it would be very interesting eventually. We do have that CME gap also at $91,800, and yeah, the CME gaps you do find support at the CME gap, so that would be very interesting to see. So yeah, let's go right away. Big pump incoming now, says Ghost of Bricks. Let's go. Thanks, Andy. I enjoy your TA. It's very insightful. Much love to you, my man. If you're lagging, close the stream and come back in. That fixed it for me. People saying that the stream is lagging. Short, says Ali. Camilo. Anyway, guys, let's go right away. Stop with the waves, JR. Hey, if you don't like the waves, hey, you can piss off, right? You can get out, right? Nobody's telling you to come here and follow the stream. We just look at the probabilities of the different movements, okay? So let's talk about the local levels of support and the waves that we are forming here in this local structure, and talk about the most important levels of support. And why would it be interesting to see one more high here? Like I said, there would be high probability if we were to claim the highs, depending on how we move up, that we could reject and form a double top. Eventually, if you break out from the highs and you continue to the upside, you're eventually not interested, right, of the price, you know, rejecting, right? You're interested in the price going to higher levels. Of course, if you do reject from the highs, you know, what we're looking at here to the upside is your first initial wave right over here. Wave 2, wave 3, your wave 4, this to be your wave 5. There is a little bit of a problem. There is a little bit of a problem here for this to be your wave 5. And that is because you formed a little bit of a 3-wave structure. You can count a 5-wave structure here. It is definitely possible. I want to consider this still being your wave 3 and your wave 5 still on the formation, right? And you're forming this your wave 4. So you had an internal 4 and 5 right there, and you got another 4 and 5 on the possibility here. This is why a double top is very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, considering that you possibly have this wave 3 finished here, your first wave 1, the most important levels of support is taking this pivot low to the pivot high, your 382 50% Fibonacci is your ultimate zone for the price to hold without hitting the golden pocket, preferably, right? So sweeping up these local lows is definitely going to be very, very interesting, right? Very, very interesting to see that movement to the downside. If you do sweep up these lows, without a doubt, it would be an interesting long, okay? Now, if you do get that movement to the upside, there's the aggressive long trading setup. You do have that order block that was not tested here, right? So you got that nice order block in this zone. You just ever so slightly tested the highs right there. And sweeping up these lows could definitely give you that opportunity if you do maintain back above them, right? If you do get back above these lows right over here, so you know, if we were to come down to this area, that swing failure pattern, get the recovery back above, is going to be the moment that this could be your wave 4, right? And then you're looking for another move to the upside to complete that wave 5. So that's going to be a very, very interesting level to hold as support. That order block right there would be nice to feel the inefficiency of this pump. You know, without a doubt, it's a long setup. And for the conservative people, if you break down, eventually you're not interested, right? If you do get that aggressive breakdown, then eventually you're not interested. If you do get down to the golden pocket, you know, obviously golden pocket could provide some support, but you know, this would be the moment that, you know, you might get that bounce and then continuation down. I'm not interested in the golden pocket here from this low to the high. So it would, you know, what I'm going to be looking at is this order block, SFP from the lows of last Thursday. And, you know, there's the aggressive long entry, which would be the SFP. You come down to the 50%. You don't want to go lower here, considering a wave 4, internal wave 4. And the conservative movement eventually would be getting that first impulsive move to the upside, right? First impulsive move to the upside, and be interested in the retracement to then get that wave 3, right? You want to be in this wave right over here. So depending on the recovery, you know, it can be analyzed. You know, you have the aggressive long, which is the SFP for the aggressive traders. And then the more conservative one is get the bounce, get the reaction, see some pretty interesting impulsive moves. And then the correction is going to be pretty damn epic. You know, you probably missed out on the previous stream, which we're going to get out right away, right? Let's just get out the previous stream because, yeah, previous update, you know, we did talk about the possibility of the price moving to the upside based on the analysis that we did talk about just a few days ago, right? So, you know, people that come to hate here, why don't you come up and talk about this, right? Why don't we talk about this? And I think many were expecting a larger pullback in this move, right? This was the scenario. This was the scenario right over here to possibly be the low. This movement down, possibly being the low, and looking for the price to get a bounce and claim the highs. This was on one of the previous updates that was mentioned as we were taking out those lows, right? Get the movement up, come down, claim the highs. We're still bullish. We still look for another wave to the upside to get above $95,000. When we were trading down below at 93K, after forming this low, this looks corrective. This will very likely be a corrective structure in a 3 wave. We analyzed very locally here that the probabilities of an impulse were very, very low. And getting a leg to the upside here would just confirm the bullishness. And eventually the corrections, you're either longing from lower or you're waiting for the correction. But taking out $95,000 was the overall idea, right? Yeah, nobody comes and say, hey, yeah, that was a great epic prediction, right? Why not, right? Why not? You know, people like to remember the bad analysis, right? But the good ones, which are many, and I'll get the entire live streams, right, from the last few weeks, every single one to talk about the different internal movements. You know, why don't I get comments from that? Right? So, you know, that's, you know, that when we were trading here, the Picasso drawing right over here, this movement to the upside to take out the highs, this is incredibly corrective. Probabilities lean on another high. Potentially this is the low. Trade it as you wish. Is this movement right over here? This. When we were trading here, understanding this wave to the downside. This right over here on one of the later streams. Right there. Right over here. Understanding the probabilities of taking out the high. Didn't get much love on that. Didn't get much love. Everybody forgot about that. That was easy. Yeah, these haters, man. You can piss off. Anyway, let's go right away through the levels of... Ignore the haters, bud. Yeah, I know. Buy high, let's go. Buy high, sell low. I know, my man. I do take it personal. I like to, you know, confront the haters. Why not? Don't feed the trolls, Andy. No matter what you say, they will still be negative. I know, my man. I know. We need to get them out of the stream, man. You know, I can't absorb that negativity from the people. It's very bad. Very, very bad. But I like to confront them and say, you know, go piss off, right? There's no room for haters in this chat. Andy is the best. Not the best, my man. Lucifer, much love to you. Only love and anti-Christian vibes here, please. Very true. I'm sorry, my man. No crying at the casino, please. Andy, you've been spot on. Not always. I'm not always spot on, guys, okay? That is true. You know, I can't say, you know, we're the best. I'm the best. We just look at the different scenarios, right? We just look at, you know, it's highly likely if we pray for the haters. They are poor and angry. Flat smack. Much love to you, my man. XRP bull flag, 15-minute big breakout incoming. XRP does look pretty damn bullish, guys. How many XRP lovers do we have on the chat? You know, press 1 for XRP lovers. Press 2 if you hate XRP right away, guys. Let me see that right now. Okay. Go right away and press 1 if you love XRP. Press 2, okay, if you hate XRP. In the comment section, I want to see all of those, you know, 1s and 2s. I know there's XRP has a massive army. There's no haters in the chat at the moment. I know, my man. It's probably 1 or 2 trolls that I just read and I take it too personal. You know, I'm like that. You know, because I don't get any love when we do get, you know, good predictions. This is the latest one. This happened 2 days ago, right? This is bullish. This is a bullish correction. We're likely going to take out the highs. You know, I want some love. I want some love as well. I know most of you do love. Anyway, BTC 120k render $40. Yeah, these, you know, they've got extremely bullish targets here. Lots of 1s, lots of 1s, lots of 2s, lots of 2s. I think it's a 50-50 battle here between XRP and also, you know, the XRP. Love to hate XRP. 1, 2. Lots of 1s, lots of 2s. Barca, Real Madrid, my man. But, you know, Barcelona is doing very well with this season. You know, they had to. It's about time, right? They did have a few seasons not doing too well. I'm a Real Madrid fan. A la Madrid, amigo. Andy, my man, of course we love and respect you. J Jack, much love to you. Okay, enough with the emotions here. Enough with emotions. Much appreciated, legends. Appreciate you, bro. I appreciate every single one. Okay, we just try and, you know, look at the different probabilities. I know Andy, lots. You know, I know Andy. Everyone loves to hate, but thanks to your predictions that BTC will bounce from around 91, I made profits. Thank you. Hey, my man. Much love to you. Much love to you. Much love to you, my man. Yeah, I mean, this is it's very, very interesting when we do. We're going to focus on the local time frame here, guys. Okay, because some people like the very easy kind of pay attention to the highs. We got the point of control of the range. You know, this is going to be a very possible rejection level. However, it could be punchy. It could be difficult. You know, if you are trying to short against the trend, it's dangerous, right? It is dangerous, and you want to see, you really want to analyze the local price action. SFP is not for everyone, okay? A swing failure pattern is not for everyone, because you can actually double top. If we were to rally here, right, you need to analyze very carefully the local waves, because you are looking for a 5-wave move internally. And you can swing failure pattern on the first shot, and then you create another swing failure pattern, and then you move down, right? It's not for everybody. Lots of people don't know how to manage risk. They would just jump on the first one, have no stop loss, and hope for the best, and maybe add to the position. You know, this is when people get burnt out, right? I like to get into the first SFP or get into the second one and analyze the local price action, right? It really depends on how you manage this, because there are a lot of people that, you know, if I talk about a swing failure pattern, I know very well how to play them because I've played them, you know, over 1,000 times. I know how they play out, and I know how to analyze the internal movement to the upside very carefully. And, you know, lots of people would just say, Andy talked about a swing failure pattern, and, you know, I'm going to get in, and then the price, you know, really, you know, goes to higher levels, right? And, you know, this movement up becomes a little bit more explosive than expected. Very, very easy to blame. Swing failure patterns are not for everybody. Swing failure patterns are not for everybody, okay? So Really have to analyze the internal structure and understand where, where the sign of strength is. Of course, the best way to look for a swing failure pattern is to detect the sign of weakness, the first movement down that actually becomes an internal impulsive move to the downside, right? So let's say price, whatever price action, we'll analyze the local price action here in just a second. Whatever the price does, starts moving up in a impulsive move. You get the 5-wave move up, you finally swing failure pattern. Regardless if it's 96, you form an internal swing failure pattern here, or you swing failure pattern from this high, right? There could be a first attempt where it's going to catch a few people, then you create another high, right? It gets very choppy and it gets very wicky. We've got lots of liquidity. It gets difficult, and then the price comes down and sweeps up the local internal lows, right? And it's a moment where a lot of people cannot, they can't manage the situation, right? There is one easier way. However, when the price drops, it could drop more aggressive. The first internal move that actually breaks the local structure, give or take, you can use a trend line. Start off with a trend line. You're starting to break the trend. And inside of this wave, on the lower time frame, you can actually detect a pretty solid 5-wave move on the lower time frame inside of this movement down. That's where of course, we do know that the price, when it drops very aggressively, right? So, maybe it can get a quick little bounce and then, you get the big massive drop. But eventually, people want to get into that movement down. And there's always the best opportunity, right? The best opportunity usually lies on detecting the first sign of weakness, which would be breaking the local structure, the first, the last local structure to the upside. You get that aggressive breakdown. Right now, we're still very corrective. We'll analyze this in the next coming minutes. But just as you get the movement up to the resistance and people want to get into an SFP, or they want to get into rejection of the range point of control, and the price keeps pumping and wicking up, which obviously makes it difficult, and it just wicks out all of those early shorters, right? It's basically an early shorter movement. But this is the key right there. When you start wicking up small little pullbacks and wicking up again, you know that this is going to, at some point, come down aggressively. It's going to happen, right? It's the last shakeout movement, right? It's the last shakeout movement. We're very likely going to see something like this in the next coming, couple of days, give or take, right? But if you want the clearest thing, you just really need to be patient, unless you know how to get into the internal double tops and detecting the 5th wave here. Unless you know how to remain patient. Because that's what I would be looking at here. The local 5th wave is what I would be interested on the lower time frames, right? Looking at the 5-minute, 15-minute, 5-minute is what you want to look at. But the first major rejection breaking trend that you want to detect a 5-wave impulse, and the bounce is what you're interested. Once you get a pretty clear, right? It might not be that clear, right? Sometimes it's not that clear. It can be a diagonal. It might be a contracting move. Then you get a little bump, and then it moves down, right? This does happen sometimes as well, which does not make it easy, right? We had one here just a few months ago that we did get a pretty significant drop, right? When you do see this price action right over here, well, eventually, it's maybe not easy, right? You had a little bit of a contracting move here. Not the best looking one, but sometimes you can move like this, where you form a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the bounce is the one that moves down, right? And this would be the classic bull flag, bull flag pennant to expect the breakout to the upside, and eventually it ends up down. We were talking about this also when we were ranging here, very much expecting this movement, I'll pull out that stream as well, because we just did a bit of 𝗞𝗏𝗃 drawing, was expecting these highs to be taken, and then the big aggressive drop down. So, you know, it can be a little bit confusing also, where you might just pump up to the highs, and then you're forming a little bit of a contracting move to the downside. And it's like, you know, this does look like a pretty solid bull flag. And then eventually it's a contracting move, right? Where you either form your wave 1 here, or your wave or your wave A, right? And then you get the aggressive move down. So, you know, sometimes it can be a diagonal. Most commonly, of course, you would want to see a pretty aggressive move down first of all, right? Get that confirmation, get the movement up, right? Nice little uptrend, sweep up the highs, get to 96, 97. Let's go. We're heading up to all-time high, and then you need to wait for the first aggressive confirmation down, right? 5 impulsive move to the downside on the local time frames. You're rejecting from the golden pocket from all-time high to the lows. And you know, that's your first confirmation. And eventually, you know, me at least, I understand very well that, you know, this would be a zone of rejection, right? And, you know, this local time frame to analyze, this would be the first confirmation that it's getting weak. It's getting weak, and eventually this would be the conservative short trade, right? The conservative short trade where you have confirmation. You have confirmation that this pump has finished, and you have a 5-wave move down to the other side. Very locally, right? They're not that easy to detect unless you're on the chart. But eventually that would be your confirmation, and the bounce will be the bounce that will be very interesting. And, you know, most commonly you would come to the 50%, maybe the 7/8 Fibonacci before you get that roll down, right? The bigger move down, which would be either your C wave or your third wave, which is the wave you want to be in, right? It's the wave you really want to be in. So aggressive short trade, SFP from the highs, you need to be cautious. You can get another leg to the upside here, right? Depending on the waves internally. Aggressive would be SFP from the highs, or actually the range point of control, which is sitting at 96.6k. At least on Bybit. It might differ ever so slightly if you're looking at Binance or Coinbase, but that is the point of control of the range of 2024, 2025, and you know, it's a pretty aggressive, you know, entry point. Unless you can detect the 5th wave on the lower time frame, then that would be your golden zone, right, to get in at the highest level possible, or wait for the confirmation, which would be that first initial breakdown of the local structure, uptrend structure, with a 5-wave move, and the bounce is the one that you want to get in, right? And very, very commonly you do create that kind of back test of you know, the higher time frame pivot highs, right, which would be this one right over here, right? So you get that uptrend, you break down from it, and then you get the back test, which is very common, right? And then lots of people would say head and shoulder structure, right? Then you start coming with the head and shoulder, but you know, the lower high here would be your interesting point. So yeah, more locally, let's focus here on the local price action. What? Yeah. This movement here is without a doubt pretty disturbing. This movement to the upside is quite disturbing for me, because it does look very 3-wavy, and as we do have a 3-wave here, 3-wave there, you know, a possible running flat is a situation right now. All of this, weekends are extremely rangy, so very, very locally here. Yeah, very, very locally here. It is without a doubt very, very confusing, rangy from the weekend. Best scenario eventually is this order block, It would be very, very interesting. You could label this as your first initial move down. I wouldn't say it's an ABC flat, because the timing right now will be getting overextended. So you have that 3-wave move down, a very 3-wavy move up here, which is very disturbing, because if we would have had a consolidation and another leg here, you would eventually expect the price, you know, possibly to roll down more aggressively. So the fact that we've moved up in a 3-wave structure gives me high confidence still that the highs could be claimed. The fact that we moved up here in a very 3-wave manner, right? You know, gives me confidence that what you are forming is still part of a correction, and that the highs are still expected to be taken, especially with this weekend range. So yeah, we really need to zoom in here on the 50-minute, which is looking very, very interesting, very, very choppy, very, very choppy. Let me just take a look at the timing to consider the ABC flats. Yeah, there's still time for an ABC flat here. Let me just double check here with the extension. We probably hit the 1236, 1382 Fibonacci extension here. So you're very much in flat environment. The B wave of a flat is very common to reject at the 1236, 138 extension from the highs to the lows of a 3-wave structure. So if you move up in a 3-wave structure, you need to consider the flat, preferably getting down to the lows. And we still have a lot of time still till Tuesday for this potential C wave. You can see how we rejected at the 1382, 1236 Fibonacci extension from this 3-wave move down. So yeah, it's the common zone for the B wave, and we still have a lot of time for the C wave to develop. Basically, you don't want the C wave to be double the time from your A wave and B wave together. And right now we're just crossing the 1-to-1, which is, you know, we still have till Wednesday for a C wave, but there can be a running flat. You know, it's very expected, guys, that another high is going to happen. Okay, I think, you know, right now looking at the chart, another high is the highest probability. Of course, how low can we pull back? Well, eventually with an ABC flat, you can actually take out these lows. This is why this area becomes very interesting, very, very interesting. The thing is this price action. This price action, the development of this price action, very, very choppy, very, very choppy. Very choppy, because obviously weekend is what you get, right? You get choppiness. You don't get any major movements. I don't see this as a major 5-wave move. It could develop a contracting diagonal or expanding 3-wave. Yeah, it could develop a kind of a contracting, you know, diagonal here and form a running flat. Running flat target 0.618. Very, very choppy price action, I have to say. We'll talk about the local internal levels of support and confluence. You know, you have hit already the running flat targets already. So, you know, the fact that you have a 3-wave structure here and a 3-wave move up to claim the highs, yeah, high probability still that we do take out the highs at some point. So yeah, you don't want to see a finished move up, right, in a 3-wave structure. That's just telling me that there's a high chance that we do take out the highs at some point. Now, obviously, is detecting, you know, the higher low. Could we form a higher low here? Worst case scenario is actually coming down to this low. So, you know, let's just create that plan here together. Because what will be easier to detect, you know, the running flats can be you know, it's very, very painful. It's very, very painful to detect, because from this high, after a 3-wave move up, well, you know, 3-wave move down, 3-wave move up, there's loads of time still for a running flat, for a flat movement to take out these lows. But it can be also a running flat where you just form a diagonal here, and then you move to the upside. So I think that the best case here, if you do take out those local lows, one more low here would be, you know, would be definitely a very, very interesting to analyze. It would be a very, very it wouldn't be looking too great. We need a little bit more information here, but it could be this little bit of a you know, the 4th wave being very, very runny here. You form one more low. I mean, we're very interested here in the support that we do have in this consolidation. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. You got the point of control, which is actually holding as support throughout today. Maybe, you know, Fibonacci from the low to the high. Yeah, best case scenario here. Like I said, you know, we know that there's high probability in taking out the highs. That's one thing that you take into consideration. It doesn't mean that these lows cannot be taken. That is the question, right? Question right now, you know, can we form a running flat, which is 3-wave move down, 3-wave move up, and this already hit the 𝗬𝚻𝗂𝗽𝗫, which is a target of a running flat. It's just going to form a wedgie structure in a 5-wave, right? A diagonal, a wedgie structure, and then break out. You know, they're very, very hard to jump into a trade based on the lowest level possible, right? Because this could break down, boom, boom, and then you have a very, very dodgy contracting move, descending wedgie structure. The best scenario is to get into the 2nd wave, right? So wait for the bounce in this case. There's high probability in taking out the highs, but there is danger in jumping into a long. We're holding that point of control of this range, right? You know, it's kind of holding. It's better to get confirmation in this case. There's no good clear SFP. You know, there is support from this point of control, which we are trying to hold right now. A running flat is a rare scenario. So I mean, you know, preferably you do actually take out these lows. That would be ideal. That would be ideal, because, you know, expanding flat is the most common flat. And let's just take a look at the 1.618. Where it's sitting. I mean, yeah, it's just, yeah, 1.618, guys, from this movement is sitting just under the order block. And let's just get Fibonacci from the lows to the highs. You know, this would be a good swing failure pattern. This would be a good swing failure pattern. Let's take a look at the lows here to the highs. It's just at the 50% Fibonacci. So yeah, there we have a golden setup. Okay, any bottom catchers, any bottom you know, catchers out there, bottom lovers. 1.618 extension is sitting where we have the 50% Fibonacci. That is if we're still considering that wave 4 and 5 is still very much possible. The reaction on the 1.618 extension and the 50%, which is sitting exactly where we have that 1.618 extension from this flat, is the option here. For the aggressive traders, it would be 1.618 extension. As soon as you get above it, your stop loss sits below. From it might be just a touch, right? It might even just touch it ever so slightly, the 1.618 extension, which is sitting at $90,800. If we were to come down there, this would be very, very interesting, because yeah, let me just go here through the through this scenario. You know, we'll talk about the contracting move, which will be easier to detect once we get the breakout. Okay, this is not a great long, I have to say. It's not the greatest long, even though if this could be the low. This area could be the low in a running flat. But if you're going to bet your ass for a running flat, realizing that you could take out the lows, it is dangerous. What you want to see is a confirmation, right? And you want your first leg breakout that we're going to talk about right now, okay? But let's just come to the conclusion here. With the 1.618 extension, you're gonna have your first move down. This is your second wave. If we were to develop a third wave here, we should be already dropping. We should be already dropping and rolling down in the next coming hours. That's when it's going to be looking very interesting, right? And then you finally form a 5-wave move to the downside. I mean, I don't like this consolidation. This consolidation looks pretty solid to actually find a base and start reversing, and that's why the contracting diagonal here is without doubt an option, which could sweep up the highs before coming down to the lows. Okay, we'll explain that scenario. What would be a clear sign of strength to jump into a long position? You're basically jumping on the confirmation after the retracement. We'll talk about that right away. But if we were to form a 5-wave move to the downside to complete this ABC flat, the level to jump in aggressively is the reaction from the 50% Fibonacci and the 1.618 extension, which is your most common flat structure, which is sitting at the exact level. I mean, this is beautiful. This is like beautiful confluence if you're speculating on a 4th wave here, which is exactly the $90,900 level, right? So you really need to pay attention to that level. 1.618 extension and the 50%, and your order block right there, which is literally sweeping up the lows of the order block. So it is a reaction point. It is a reaction zone. Right, so this is a level to put on the trading book. This is a trade to put in the trading book. Reaction 1.618 extension. These lows. You got Fibonacci confluence. You have the order block, sweep of the lows, and you have, the projection. Right, you got the analysis to believe that is a scenario that could happen. So this becomes a long setup based on the reaction. And when you ask me, how to trade this, well, the most aggressive scenario is once you recover or you touch the 1.618 extension, you jump into the trade and you put your stop loss beneath the low. So if you were to form a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you got your C wave, which needs to be a 5-wave structure. And then, depending on that reaction of your 1.618, as soon as you get back above it, you touch it, you get above it. It's a sniper trade. Stop loss at the low, and this could be the one that actually gets all the way up here to the highs. It can be a really, really epic long trade. This is the level that needs to hold, right? You want to see it back above. It could be the instant reaction level. Then you have the conservative scenario, right? You have the sniper trade, which is literally a kind of a swing failure pattern from that 1.618. And then you have the confirmation pump, which you want to see a pretty aggressive move to the upside in a 5-wave structure, right? This is like your confirmation. For all of those people that want to see a little bit of a sign of strength, a little bit of a pump, instead of snipering, the 1.618 reaction, which is also with a 50% from this pivot low, then you got your aggressive long, which is the 1.618 50% reaction from the lows of this order block. It's aggressive, but your stop loss needs to be beneath the low of the reaction. And then you have the conservative trade, right? The signs of strength, is proof of support. And that would be getting that first leg to the upside and analyzing the correction. And, you have your second option, aggressive long, conservative long. And you really need that, big impulsive move up. And, that would be the the conservative option, right? Where you get a bit of confirmation on the first reaction. Of course, we could form that running flat. Let's go through the running flat scenario. What we would want to see, because if this turns out to be a running flat, all right, huge pump incoming this week, very much, my man. It will go to all-time highs, maybe. We're talking about local internal scenarios, okay? So with this movement, nice little bounce here. The wave three, aggressive wave three could still happen. You know, the dump could happen throughout tonight. But what would be interesting here, as we are holding the, you know, still holding this range, we have one official low here only. You got this little sideways bounce. If you move down, you know, what you want to see is this kind of movement. You know, anybody that is long in here needs to be aware of, you know, it might come down to the lows. Not sure how you would manage risk on that scenario, but, you know, for me, it would be pretty damn simple, you know, to jump into a long position here. I realize that a running flat is an option, and I'm just explaining what I would want to see, right, for a confirmation to jump into a trade, because it is possible that you form a kind of a contracting move here. You know, it is definitely possible. You have a 3-wave move down, you have a 3-wave move up. You don't want to finish a high with a 3-wave move up. So you instantly, you know, instantly consider a flat. So it's either a running flat or an expanding flat. You take out the lows. Which one will happen? I don't know. I don't know. So, you know, if our next breakdown here does not follow through, if the next breakdown here does not follow through, it's just keeping it in simple terms, guys, right? Trading has been patient and waiting for confirmations. Can't jump on 10 trades every day unless, you know, well, maybe. I need, you know, a lot of confirmation. So you do have this, you know, area where you have high volume from the consolidation of the last few days. If you fail to break down here and you kind of break out with a significant move up, it's going to be this will be the confirmation, the first leg to the upside. And you want to analyze the corrective move here very, very carefully. If you break down and fail right now, the next move up, you know, this is coming with the idea that we are looking at that ABC flat here, okay? Running flat, choppy weekend, choppiness to the downside. If, you know, obviously this zone is very much a zone that we are paying attention to. 91k zone, right? As mentioned, the regular flat, the expanding flat, where you actually got 1, 2, and now the 3, you know, really takes down the price to lower levels. Consolidation, boom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as explained. But for the running flat, if you were to form a contracting diagonal here on your wave C for the running flat, which the minimum target has been hit already, which is the 0.618 from this movement, then it's just a very hard long setup, right? You want to see the confirmation. You want to see the confirmation leg to the upside. And eventually, if you do get this leg up, you know, you are going to get some kind of pullback down, and then, you know, what you're expecting is the 3rd wave, 4th and the 5th wave, right, of some kind, right? It's not going to be that beautiful, we know that, but your confirmation will be this movement. And it's unlikely that this is just going to move up in a straight line, right? It's not going to do this. You are going to see that wave. You are going to see some kind of waves, right? We do get the waves. We do get the waves. And you know, this would be the easiest confirmation to get, you know, to realize that the highs are going to be taken. So the pullback down to the 50% 7/8 Fibonacci is your interest zone. Stop loss beneath the low, right? Keeping it simple. You know, there's no more to it. If you get a nice breakout throughout today, Your stop is at the low, entry zone between 50% and 7.8, and you are looking at the highs to be taken, just because you moved in a 3-wave structure to the upside. So the probabilities still lean to the upside here, guys, regardless if we take out these lows or not. The probabilities lean for another high. So that's the key scenario, right? So what makes a lot of people get confused of when should I long, right? When should I long? When should I short? For this case, I mean, the aggressive long, as mentioned, would be the 1.618 extension. It's the most common flat. You do have time today for this to be an aggressive third where it might just collapse down, right? It might do it. If you start moving down like this, then you got it, right? If you start forming this kind of price action, you realize that you have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1.618 order block, and the 50% Fibonacci, which is your last zone of support for your waveform. So, it's all about being patient, right? It's all about being patient. Will we come down here to to the exact level of interest, or will we form a contracting move here in a running flat and then form the 5-wave move up? And this is very, very classic, right? This does look choppy. You're uptrending still, so you're going to have the idea that it does look like it's going to dump. But there's many, what examples could I give you here? For example, maybe with this pump right over here, right? And you're still grinding to the upside, right? You're still getting the movement up. Oh, this looks choppy. It looks like it's going to roll over, and then bang, you hit the highs again. There's many examples on this that we can detect on the chart. But it's literally when we get that choppiness to the upside, right, where you're going to get a lot of shorting interest here, and unfortunately for the bears, there's still a high chance that those highs are going to be taken. So as mentioned, the best scenario here is waiting for the breakout. Because if you jump into a long position, I'm not sure if you want to put stop loss here or here. I don't know. For me, there would be no setup. It's either you get down to the order block at the 1.618. There's an aggressive trigger right there. There is an aggressive trigger, or you wait for the bounce and you wait for the pullback, conservative entry. We're still looking for the highs, or you form a diagonal here, which is very hard to detect. You need the breakout here. You do need the breakout, because this could be a double 1-2 easily. The bad thing about a diagonal is that you might think contracting diagonal, boom, boom, and this is just a double 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5. Right, and then you form your ABC. So it can be a confusing moment here for people saying we're going to move up here, right? And you form a double 1-2, which can be confusing. You would really need to see another low and a nice move up here. Then you would say, okay, perfect. 5-wave move to the downside. You get the solid breakout, and you're going to come up here in a 5-wave structure. Sort of some kind, you're going to grind to the upside here to take out the high. So you need that breakout. You need that confirmation move to the upside. You need a leg up here with volume, very impulsive. The correction is going to be your decision moment. Stop loss at the low. Do you want to take it or not? Risk to reward is going to be more of a 2.5 to 1, 3 to 1 risk to reward. You want to get out at the highs, right? So it's all about decisions, right? And realizing what when it confirms, right? Anyway, hope that helps. Hope that gives you an idea of when taking a decision, right? When you want to take that decision, it's all about really being confident on that trading setup. Legends, if you are interested in trading, remember that you do have 20% deposit bonus on Weex, guys, okay? You just need an email and a password to sign up to Weex, okay? Email and password, you're signing up, and you do have 20% deposit bonus, right? You wait 3 days, and you get up to $2,000, right? If you deposit $10,000, you're getting $2,000 on top of that, and you also get 25% deposit bonus on Weex, Legends, okay? Another way to support the channel, another way for you to get the biggest bonus available. And you just need an email and a password. You can trade almost anywhere, guys, I think, in the world on Weex. Let's go through comment section, see what the people are. Dump to 89K LFG. Yeah. As mentioned, the probabilities in taking out the highs is we could sweep up these lows. There's no doubt about it. But there is still a high chance in taking out the highs here, okay, guys? Just looking at this, you know, realizing the information that we have here, okay? It's just like with this movement down that we had the last few days. Last few days, we did analysis on this three-wave structure to the downside. You know, looking at the overall counts, the probabilities were leaning on taking out the highs, right? Probabilities with this structure that we had a few days ago, the probabilities were, you know, higher to take out the highs. So it's all about probabilities, right? So, you know, we did take out the highs. That's the probability. The fact that we moved up and took out the highs in a three-wave structure opens the door to a possible flat. We are still inside of corrective price action. This movement to the downside for the moment doesn't look bearish, right? I have to say, it does not look bearish, this movement down. So it's all realizing what's highly likely to take out the highs. These lows can be taken based on the ABC flat. So it's all about taking the right decision. You have your first initial leg up, which eventually, you know, could bring you up to that 5-wave move to the upside to hit 96, 97, right? We don't know. Just basically that last leg up here in an impulse. We want to see a 5-wave move. You need that breakout to get into the correction. Preferably you do take out the lows here one more time because, you know, like I said, the risk of a double 1-2 here, the risk of a double 1-2 is there. The fact that you've hit this low, this is a higher low. Yeah, this, oh no, hang on a minute. We've still got the flat possibility. Yeah, this low was taken. This low was taken. Yeah, this low is very shallow. You know, I would be a bit cautious with this pump because the risk for a double 1-2 here is there. It is there. The risk of a double 1-2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, you know, get down to the lows. It is there. It is there, I have to say. Preferably, you know, what you want to see is this kind of price action. This would be the ideal scenario. This movement, if you form a lower high, you know, let's keep it simple here. If you form a lower high, you claim the lows one more time, breaking this trend, this would be a kind of a breakout, breakout trade. Breakout trade. Stop would have to be a little bit far away because you know, unless you get into the pullback. And you're looking for that contracting move, a descending wedge, right? For all of that easy. And you're looking for that running flat contracting diagonal here. And your 5-wave. But I wouldn't trust this pump. I wouldn't trust this first pump. The risk still of a double 1-2 is there. So you have to take out the lows one more time, and then the pump to the highs will be the confirmation. That's, you know, this is the kind of price action that I want to see. This would be the golden trade. If you get into a pump here after taking out the lows to get very close to this high, that literally confirms the bullishness here. That literally confirms that you're likely just going to come up to the highs. It's a way that the price can move, right? It's a way that the price can move here to really detect that sign of strength. Let's go through the comment section, guys, right away. We're just giving some ideas on how the price can develop, right? This was actually pretty legit. This was actually pretty, you realize how this is extremely corrective, and that the highs are going to be taken again based on one of the previous videos, right? This is a bit higher time frame. Anyway, let's go through the comment section right away. Say hello to the beautiful community. 100K this week is certain. Come on, man. I should close my short then. I've been in profit for a while. I do believe that a big correction is going to happen, right? But it's all on the local price action, right? Like, as I mentioned, as explained, I don't see a solid breakout from this area. I don't see a big solid breakout. I do see it testing the highs. And of course, we could go to 97, 98, right? It's probably not going to be a swing failure pattern, and you're going to get that leg up here to hit the golden pocket. Maybe attempt to break the range point of control. But, I would be expecting a pretty decent pullback at some point in the coming days. And, it's all about the local price action. The local price action is telling me that there's a higher chance that we do take out the highs. How are we going to take out the highs? I don't know. We need to see it, right? We can go to 97, 98. You need to analyze the local price action, how we get up there. But, this is why analyzing local price action, you do realize that there is a high chance still that we do take out the highs. Regardless if you form a wedgie structure here and then break up, or you take out the lows and then go up. It's all about the right decision of the trade. And I would love to see this kind of price action. This would be the perfect move confirmation. Move up here, boom, boom. You can detect that contracting move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Movement to the upside to take the last lower high. That is your confirmation. That is your confirmation trigger that this ain't going down. This is very likely going to go up. Of course, you need your stop losses, right? You need your stops beneath the lows. Don't trade with no stops, guys, and invalidation levels. Let's bearish CVD now. Bearish CVDs, it does look like there is still the potential of sweeping up these lows. I mean, this would be ideal, getting down to the order block 1.618 extension. This would be pretty epic, because this would be a very, very good long setup. SFP from $91,000, which is your 1.618 extension. But you want to see a double 1, 2 here on the formation, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, right? And then you get the rally. And you're mapping this as an ABC flat. 1.618 extension, 50% Fibonacci, your last level for the wave 4 to hold. No, this would actually be 382 to 50%, which is just in between. The 1.618 is in between those two levels. So this would be the level, the zone to hold. As mentioned, regardless of this or this, there's a high chance in taking out the highs. That's the information that we do have. So let's go through the comment section, my legends. Much love to everybody. Sunday bearish CVDs now, so we do have some bearish CVD divergence apparently. Bearish CVD divergence on Bybit. Yeah, we do have some local bearish CVDs. Very, very local. 𝗕𝗶𝗴𝗫, bonk, modding, heavy accumulation. Let's go. What's your thoughts on XRP? I think XRP is actually bullish. You know, I don't hold any XRP and I don't believe in XRP, but the charts look bullish. The charts look pretty damn solid, I have to say. You know, you hate XRP and you're bullish. What's going on? It's all in the charts. The charts look bullish. This looks corrective. This looks very corrective. I mean, depending on what the higher time frame, you do have that multi-year bear market on XRP that, you know, turned out to be a very large triangle. And, you know, this is actually pretty this is a multi-year consolidation after the big pump cycle that we had in 2017. It's a multi-year consolidation. And we have our first pump up on XRP, our first breakout. And, you know, you eventually expect a few more pumps, because you pump up and you consolidate. You pump up and you consolidate and you pump up. Here, we have a 5-wave move up from the previous cycle, right? You know, you can see it on the chart. You can't make it up. You can't make it up. There's a 5-wave move up here in the previous cycle on XRP. There's a multi-year consolidation on in a triangle, extremely corrective. And you have your first breakout. You have your first wave up. So yeah, it just, all of this local price action looks very corrective, I have to say. So you would expect that, you know, a 5-wave move up here, you know, throughout this year. You know, possibly hitting $10, $15, you know, very, very possible. I have to give it, you know, you have to give it, it does look pretty damn good. XRP looks good. This consolidation, there's nothing bearish about this consolidation, I have to say, even though I hate XRP. It looks pretty damn solid. Very, very corrective sideways momentum here. For, you know, for the easy analysts out there, it's a bullish flag, right? In a nutshell, keeping it simple, keeping it basic. You know, based on Elliott waves, it's incredibly corrective price action. So the probabilities for a breakout here to the upside are very, very high. You know, XRP does look bullish. Does look bullish. It's a bull trap. I say a bull trap. It's a bull trap, Steve. Yeah, for XRP or for Bitcoin. We're going to 100K this week. BlackRock, even, you can't change that. Yeah, it's like the ETF inflows, right? We got 1 billion this week, 100K. XRP, same as BTC, says Empire Trades. Much love to you, my man. 𝗖𝗿𝘆𝗽𝗽. Andy, can you please do some quick TA on W? On W? What is W? On W? What is W, my man? On W, is that the ticker symbol? What is this coin? I need some more information on the ticker symbol on the coin, my man. 𝗖𝗿𝘆𝗽𝗽. Much love to you, a long-term follower here on the channel. XRP looks bullish. People like bullish XRP. XRP army is huge. XRP is like the US army, right? It's massive. Those look very, very, very bullish. Very, very bullish. I have to say, there's nothing bearish about this consolidation. Wormhole. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm surprised that you don't see Wormhole popping out here when you put double just W, right? Wormhole W. Yeah, that's the ticker symbol. Wormhole. Yeah, apparently Wormhole is it a real world asset coin? I know there's I did hear about this. Wormhole. cross-chain communication, made in USA, multi-coin capital portfolio. Yeah, apparently there's big VCs behind this this project. There's big investors behind Wormhole, that is for sure. But what do the charts tell us? I mean, I have to say that this does look very, very nice consolidation. Obviously, you know, you're not uptrending. Well, there's no doubt about it, right? You're not uptrending, but you're starting to find some bottoming formation, right? The easy way to detect this, for the easy, you know, this is a buying zone in my opinion. There are VCs behind this project. I'm not quite sure what it does. Need to do a little bit of research, but the chart looks like that the selling pressure is getting exhausted. Yeah, I can't get into the website now, but yeah, I've read about this one. I've seen some people talk about it. Apparently it's a very good project. Can't remember what it is right now, but there are big investors behind it. You know, in a simple way of analyzing the chart, the selling pressure is getting exhausted, right? The downtrend is starting to go sideways, right? You're breaking trend, not massively, right? You're just continuing the sideways range, and that's, you know, that's when you want to become, you know, quite interested. So, I mean, there's no real technical analysis to be done here, right? This one was launched, you know, was it last year? Last year at some point. Was launched last year. It's a relatively new crypto, so there's not, it launched, got a pump, and started dumping very aggressively, so we can't really do any strong analysis on this. But what we can say is that you got a nice buying bounce here, and then testing the lows. This is very, very common to see in an accumulation. There's buying pressure spikes here on Binance, which I would expect to be the exchange that has one of the most, you know, liquidity on this coin. And, you know, seeing these buying spikes after a downtrend and going sideways is a good sign. It's a good sign. Just keeping it simple here. It's a good sign. It's a good zone for accumulation, right? And the fact that you have, you know, strong VCs behind this project, it's a moment to consider, a right moment to buy something when it's, you know, corrected down a lot and it's starting to go sideways, and you're starting to see some spikes in volume here as you go sideways from an aggressive downtrend of the last few months. You know, it's low probability in going wrong with this one, buying down here. You know, you can go wrong in buying the pumps. You can go very wrong in buying the pumps. Very, very wrong. Very wrong, right? FOMO, you know, you got it on the chart, guys. You don't want to FOMO in when you pump. This happens. If you move down and start going sideways and you start getting some buying pumps, regardless if you test the lows or not, you're going sideways, this could be a very strong potential signal that you're finding a bottom here. You're finding a local bottom, and a reversal has a higher chance than continuation down aggressively. There's a higher chance in the next coming weeks for this than actually this. Do you want to buy the pump later on? Well, you know, you get the point, right? You don't want to buy the pumps. You want to be in the pump already. So it looks pretty good. It looks actually pretty good. Just analyzing it in a simple way here. Simple explanation here for the viewers. You're broken, you know, you're starting to slow down on the downtrend. You're going sideways. You're starting to see some volume spikes at the lows. You're testing the lows, testing the lows. It doesn't matter. Testing the lows. This is already losing the momentum of the trend. So, yeah, it's, you know, it looks very, very interesting to buy up at these levels. I know I know there's big companies behind this project, so you would assume that there would be some accumulation activity at this area, right? Smart money want to buy here, and you know, when you see these big volume spikes at the lows, you know, there's something going on here. There is something going on down here. So that's my point of view on Worm, my man. Singularity X, much love to you. Just bought 1G of Worm. Please check link. Let's go with Chainlink, my man. Let's go. We're doing some altcoin reviews. Legends. Let's go. Altcoins. Still have all of my Chainlink. Got a little bit of a pumpy action here on Chainlink the last few days. Getting a bit of a pullback. This is the overall question right now. Right? Do we see a 3-wave structure, or do we see a double 1-2? Boom. Get to the 3rd wave in the next coming weeks, right? Chainlink's holding the previous consolidation that we had, right? Chainlink is holding, it is trying to hold a higher low here, which I think it can succeed. A larger bounce here for Chainlink is very, very likely without taking out this low at $8. The question is, how strong will this bounce be? That's my question. You know, there's no doubt that a bounce here without taking out the lows is going to happen for Chainlink. You know, my question is, how strong will this movement up be? I still hold on all of my Chainlink. I've got thousands of Chainlink that I bought here in this area, guys. I accumulated like crazy. Accumulated like crazy here, and you know, people that are following the channel for a long time know that I was saying, guys, I'm buying a bit of more Chainlink today. I'm buying more Chainlink. I'm buying more Chainlink. This is an accumulation, you know, and I got sick of buying. You know, I bought, you know, lots of Chainlink in this area, and you know, had a lot of time to buy. It's up about 2x. I mean, I'm happy, but I could be happier, right? And still holding that Chainlink. You know, I'm not scared about all of this. You know, worst case scenario, well, you know, we just enter into a slow bear market, right? Till we recover at some point. But you know, there's a high chance that we do get a larger bounce, and then taking out this low at $8. That is for sure. So a bounce here on Chainlink, you know, looks imminent without taking out this low for the moment, just because of the aggressive move down, guys. You know, all of this is not because I think it's going to happen. It's just based on the analysis here. Regardless if this is a impulsive move down, for the moment it does look pretty 3-wavy. But when you have your first rejection, which is your smallest, the 3rd one, which is your largest, regardless if it's going to be an impulse or not, you are looking for a bounce here. You are looking for a bounce, you know, which likely will take Chainlink to $20 plus, give or take. The question is, will this bounce be impulsive? But this is coming to an end stage, that is for sure. This movement down on Chainlink is coming to its end stages before getting the movement up, which literally is what happened to Bitcoin with the movement down here, right? Which is this first movement down, the aggressive move down, and the choppiness. So there's no doubt about that. You know, Chainlink looks good on the higher time frame for the bounce, and still holding the Chainlink. Not going to sell. Not selling, guys. I'm not selling. Pi Network. Yeah, apparently Pi Network is a scheme, right? Pyramid scheme. Pi Network. I think, you know, yeah, it's flattening out here. Not much to talk about this one. Your thoughts on IMX, Andy, please. KJ, much love to you. Big pump incoming this week. I know, brother. Chill out. Bitcoin's going to $1 million. Won't be this year, though. Hold up your Bitcoin for the future. You'll do well. Thoughts on IMX? Let's take a look at IMX. Immutable X, if I'm not mistaken, that is ticker symbol. Immutable. This is it's a gaming, is it a gaming project? I think it's it. Oh, categories, it's all sorts. NFTs, plays to earn, layer 2. Wow, this has everything. This has everything. Immutable X, my goodness. All the categories that it has. This does everything. Yeah, back at the lows. Whoever's interested in Immutable X. Yeah, the fact that we are at the lows of the bear market, right? You know, you do realize that when you come down here, the selling pressure should get exhausted, right? Where you accumulate and you bottom out and you come back down to the level. This is a zone where most were buying, right? So whoever did not sell when they bought at this range, they will not be interested in selling here, right? This is it's coming back to the accumulation zone, right? It's a good area for accumulation. Let's leave it that way for the long term. Whoever bought here in 2024 is feeling the pain. You coming down to this area where the price stopped and people started buying, you realize that there was no selling pressure at this area. So why would there be a lot of selling pressure here, right? You're coming back to the accumulation zone. So, you know, it's a zone where it's gonna bounce in the next coming weeks. You are gonna get a bounce. The question is, will you come back down to the area or not? So regarding accumulation, I mean, we're not going to talk about you know, trading setups here on these altcoins, but I like this wedgie structure. You know, this. Well, I mean, it's like this one right over here. I mean, you want to be careful eventually, but it does look like that it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sharp move down, quick bounce, sharp move down, consolidation, sharp move down, consolidation. You got a bit of a 5-waver here. It doesn't look too, but this 5-waver could be good, because if you do form a 5-waver right at the end of a movement like this, it could be the end, right? It is impulsive, but this could be a kind of an ABC structure. But the fact that you come down all the way to the lows, it is a zigzag. It's a zigzag move. You formed a 5-wave move on this zigzag at the lows. You know, a bounce is imminent. A bounce is imminent here when you're at the lows from the base. Could you test the lows again, you know, create a bit of volatility internally here? Well, you know, the best thing is to buy in this zone and you know, hold on those little drops of 10-20%, right? Don't panic if it drops from this area. The big drops have happened already, so you know, you don't need to panic from a 10-20% drop in this zone. You know that the danger has already happened, right? Worst case scenario is that you are going to hold on a 10-20% unrealized loss, but it will reverse at some point. So you got a winner here. You got a winner. You do have a winner. And what is interesting to analyze from this movement down, the fact that you're down at the base where, you know, you actually bottomed out in the, you know, in the last couple of years, is that you've moved down in a 3-wave structure. And inside of this 3rd wave move down, you've already formed a 5-wave move down, right? So that's what you want to see. You want to see, look at this. I'll just give you, I'll give you a hint here. You know, there's no doubt about the bounce. My question is, will the bounce be strong enough to get a major rally? And you know, the best example is that I could give you here on this one is just put the bars pattern from this price action, and you might, you know, and then shorten it a little bit and then do this. You know, you get the idea. It's not exactly the same. Of course, if it would be the same, then it would be very easy, but you get the idea of the 5-wave move down. You get the idea, right, of the 5-wave move down. I mean, this bounce was pretty epic, but this bounce right over here, there was lots of overlap, so it did turn out in more of a contracting move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, when you get this out of the way, you got an aggressive wave. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got a bit of 4 5s here, and then your next 5th wave. A bounce is imminent, in my opinion. A pretty nice relief rally, regardless if you go sideways and slightly down. A bounce in the next coming weeks is imminent, right? The problem is will the bounce come back down to the lows? Will the bounce come back down to the lows? That is the main question here. But a bounce is imminent. Let's go right away through the comment section, and you know, we can take a look at something else, right? You can see a 5-wave move up here. Not exactly the same. You know, this consolidation right over here, this was uptrending, this was downtrending. That's the only difference. The only difference of this movement to this one is that this consolidation was downtrending and this one was uptrending. 3-wave move down back to the lows. It's just yeah, it's like math, you know. This is gonna the bounce is gonna happen on this one in the coming weeks. Legends, thanks Andy, much love to you. KJS Trades, much love to you, my man. I think you were the one that asking for IMX. Much love. It does look pretty solid for the next coming weeks, regardless of going lower a little bit more. You know, you should be happy in buying at these levels. You know, I feel bad for the people that bought a few months ago on IMX, right? You know, they are feeling the pressure, the downtrend. You know, that's the thing. When we get the pumps, we're gonna get views. We're gonna get people interested. We're back. This is the moment where you can do a quick little flip profit of a 2-3x in the next couple of months, maybe, right? So yeah, legends, it's a little bit too late. I'm going to do another live stream tomorrow. We can take a look at some altcoins. You know, I would even consider buying a bit of this myself. I know IMX, you know, is I think it is I've heard about IMX before. It is in everything almost. Layer 2, zero knowledge, roll up, gaming. I think it's one of the most solid gaming projects. Could that be it? The highest cap, market cap. I've heard about IMX. Yeah, this is number 1 in the gaming sector. I'm not sure how gaming's going to do. It's just a good buy. It's a good buying zone. Legend's going to wrap it up for today. Thank you very much for joining. Take care. It's Sunday. Smash up that like button. Let's get to 400. Remember, you got a great bonus on Weex, Legends, okay? 20% deposit bonus on Weex. You just need to transfer that deposit to your futures account, hold 3 days, and you're going to get that airdrop of 20%, maximum of $2,000, and also a 25% fee reduction as you sign up with the second link, guys. Okay? You just need an email and a password on Weex. Take advantage. It's another way to support the channel, another way for you to trade on a platform and claim some bonuses. Thank you very much for joining. Smash up the like button if you enjoyed the technical analysis on Bitcoin, guys, because it's looking very interesting. Like I said, high probability in taking out the local highs. Let's see how we break out. Much love, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow.